In today's video, we're going to be reviewing a simple 4-drill mobility routine that places primary emphasis on the upper back and shoulders and requires nothing more than a simple foam roller. Now, I enjoy incorporating simple routines like this because they're short and they're sweet and they place specific emphasis on just one area of the body. 3 to 5 drills, 3 to 6 minutes, you're in, you're out, you're done, and with very little equipment required, you can do them in the comfort of your own home. So let's get to it. The first drill we're going to be covering is actually a combination of a basic dynamic stretch and static stretch. Now, there will be a little bit of foam rolling in this routine, hence the foam roller being the primary training implement or training tool. But what I have found to be beneficial is that you want to get a little bit of blood flowing to the targeted area first. Foam rolling on cold tissue is not only a little more uncomfortable, but it tends to be much less impactful. So, first drill is as follows. We're going to get down to the floor and we're going to position this foam roller so that it is just at about underneath the shoulder blades. So you might have to adjust your position slightly. Now from this position, what I like to do is I like to fully extend my legs, just like so, and place the arms down to the sides. You want to tuck your chin slightly just to ensure you don't have a lot of stress on your neck from going like this throughout the next 60 or so seconds. And now from this position, your thumbs are going to be up towards the ceiling. You can make fists or you can keep your palms open, whatever you prefer. We're going to keep the arms fully extended and very deliberately, we're going to move with a steady pace. We're just going to raise the arms up overhead, respecting their individual range of motion. So we don't want to push this past a 3 or a 4 on the relative discomfort scale. So once you get to about that 3 or 4, you're going to simply return the arms back to the starting position. We're moving, again, deliberately. We're not rushing through this and trying to be Speedy Gonzalez. And each consequent repetition, you might be able to push that range of motion a little bit further, or you might not. Both are okay. And once you get to repetition 10, you're simply going to hold this position for 30 to 45 seconds and allow the weight of your own arms to increase the intensity of the stretch. You're not necessarily forcing yourself any further down. Now, once you've completed all 10 overhead reaches and you've held for 30 to 45 seconds on the 10th repetition, we're going to move into a sideline windmill. Now, anyone who's followed me for a little while is well aware that sideline windmills are one of my all-time favorites when it comes to prioritizing upper back and shoulder mobility. So, what we're going to do on this one here is we're actually going to place the foam roller under the top leg. And it looks kind of like this. We're going to lay it on the side, just like so. Foam roller is going to be positioned so that we can assume an approximate 90-degree bend in the knee joint and relative to the hip position as well. So, having this knee elevated on top of the foam roller allows us to keep a relatively neutral spine, which is always nice because you're not going to be placing a lot of stress on your lower back by being in an awkward position such as this one. Now, bottom arm, palm is facing up towards the ceiling, top arm over top just like so. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing a half circle all the way around the body. And we want to maintain certain points of contact. So this knee should remain in contact with the foam roller. This hand should remain in contact with the floor. And what we're going to do is very slowly with the index finger of that top hand is draw that half circle, following that hand with our gaze as we come all the way around. Keeping that arm fully extended throughout the entire range of motion. Now once you get to this position, you can simply come right back across the body. There's no need to go any further. Now, what's important to be aware of here is sometimes you're a little tight through the upper back, and you may not be able to keep a fully extended arm and maintain contact with the index finger on the floor. When that happens, respect your range of motion. Don't try and force yourself through unnecessary pain that isn't beneficial. Instead of pulling your elbow in and completing a really awkward, crappy half circle, what you're actually going to do is simply raise your arm up as high as you need to on an individual basis and complete the remainder of that half circle before closing off. That's more than okay to do, and eventually, as your relative mobility improves, you'll be able to maintain contact with the floor throughout the entire repetition. Personally, I like to do about 10 repetitions on each side, and then I move on to the next drill. So next up, now that we've gotten some blood flowing to the tissues, they're warmed up, we're going to prioritize some foam rolling. Now, we're going to roll the mid and upper back. So we don't want the foam roller to start on the lower back and force the lower back into overextension. And we also don't want to roll on the lower back throughout the movement. So what we're going to do is position the roller so that it's at about the mid back, and we're going to be rolling right to the top of the upper back. Now, what's important here is it's not all that progressive to roll on the shoulder blades. It doesn't really do a lot. It's not very impactful. So what I like to suggest to people is one of two things. Either to hug themselves like this, because that's going to kind of pull the shoulder blades out and around and allow them to target more of the tissue through the upper back than they otherwise would be if they just simply roll back and forth like this. And the other thing they can do is cross their arms over. It kind of does the same thing in terms of opening up the upper back, but reaching up at the same time. Both tend to be very progressive. Now, if you have a training partner or you have access to some sort of suspension system in terms of straps or bands, then you could technically grab onto that and pull upwards slightly. That would be progressive, but we're going to assume that you don't have access to that right now. So I'm going to cross my arms over and reach up, and I'm going to simply position my feet on the heels and pull my bum towards my heels until I get to the upper back. And then I'm going to very slowly and deliberately roll forward. Now, I would suggest, instead of doing individual passes, to just set a timer on these. And the reason I suggest that to people is because foam rolling can be very uncomfortable, especially if you have a lot of relative tightness in a specific area. And so if you have a predetermined amount of passes, like 15 times back and forth, it's very easy to just rush through it and get them over with. But if you set a predetermined amount of time, say 90 seconds, it really doesn't matter how quickly you move because you're there for 90 seconds. So setting that time allows you the relief of being able to move slowly and deliberately and not trying to rush through it to simply end the discomfort early, because it doesn't matter if you do 4 or 8 repetitions within that 90 seconds, you're under tension for that period of time, or you're relieving tension for that period of time. Once we've rolled the upper back, we're going to roll the lats, and this is incredibly uncomfortable and arguably a little bit advanced. So if you struggle with this, don't be upset. It might be something you have to work up to. And if you find it very uncomfortable, there's really no surprise there. This is a tough one. So we're actually going to be prioritizing the meaty part of the upper back here. So we'll be on our side on top of the roller. And what's important to be aware of here is we don't want to roll the ribs. Just as we didn't want to roll the shoulder blades, there's no benefit to rolling the ribs, and it hurts like hell. So what you're going to do, and you're going to have to experiment with the position on an individual basis, is you're going to position yourself so that meaty, thick tissue is on the roller. So likely you're going to be in a position where your chest is almost pointing on a slight angle upwards toward the ceiling. I'd say a 45, but I'm not really sure what this contorted angle is. Now, the challenging part of this is actually applying pressure. Once you have the meaty part tacked down, it is most beneficial to reach that arm out and really lengthen those lats. Now, when you apply pressure, getting your torso up might not be something that you can do. My lats are super tight right now, so this feels fabulous. Now, one of two things. Be aware your range of motion on this drill is very short. You're not rolling all the way down to your hip. We're looking at about this much movement, from the mid-back right up into the armpit. So when I incorporate this, I personally put my one hand on the roller for balance and stability. You can put it on the floor, but that will likely change the position of your torso so that it's not as effective in targeting the lats themselves. So what I like to do, I like to place my hand just like so, and I lift my hip off the ground, and I roll. Oh, it feels absolutely phenomenal. And I'm basically pulling my torso with the heel and toe of the feet. Those are fabulous. I can't even explain to you the pleasure and euphoria that I'm experiencing right now. Now, when foam rolling the lats, there's a few things to be aware of. As I mentioned, it's very uncomfortable, so your range of motion might be very limited. That's okay. You still want to set a predetermined amount of time and work with what you can. Be aware that if you can't move at all, that it's okay to to incorporate movement from the arm, maybe pulling the elbow down towards the roller and staying in one position on the roller for a set period of time, and then repositioning it ever so slightly. That's a progressive way to build up if you're not at the point where you can handle the discomfort or the strength required to roll the lats with your hip elevated. Again, set a predetermined amount of time regardless of what approach you might be taking on an individual basis, simply because this one is even more uncomfortable than rolling the upper back, and if you only have to do 2 reps, they're gonna look like boom, boom, done, because you wanna get it over with. If you have that preset time, you can focus on moving slowly and getting the greatest yield out of that tissue. So there's 4 simple drills that can be combined into a short, sweet mobility routine that prioritizes the upper back and the shoulders. If you found the video beneficial, make sure to give it a like. And if you have any individual requests or questions, feel free to follow us and send us a DM.